the Crime Commission on the CBA or community-based aid, sorry, we tend to talk in acronyms, and I will try to at least say what they mean first before I just jump into that. So the community-based aid grant and the juvenile services grant starting this year with reporting in the JCMS or the juvenile case management system. I have a quick PowerPoint to go through some finer details of the JCMS, and then I'm going to jump into this system. I have a couple of places where I will stop for questions, but if you do have questions throughout, I think you can type them in somewhere and we'll try to catch them as they come in. All right, and I apologize, I'm not the most tech savvy person, and today my computer is being extra challenging, so we'll see what happens. All right. All righty, here we go. All right, so this is the Juvenile Case Management System. We call it the JCMS. It is found at ncjis.nebraska.gov. Logging into this system, you do need a certificate from the Crime Commission to access the website. I believe most of you should have received your certificates. I know I had a couple of requests last week, and at the beginning of this week, I'm still working on getting those sent in. So if you need additional certificates, you just email me the first name, last name, and email address of the person who needs the certificates and the permissions. And I send that information on to the Crime Commission, and they are the ones that set up the certificates. You can have more than one person within your agency with access to the JCMS. It's better to have a certificate for each person who needs it than to try to share one certificate. It's the certificates are what make the system so secure. So if everybody in the office is sharing one certificate, there's 2 passwords that are being circulated and floated around, which not good idea. Everybody should just have their own. So what is the JCMS and why are we entering into it? It's a secure database. That's why I said the certificates make it secure. It's housed within INCGIS, which is maintained by the Crime Commission, which is why they're the ones that send you the certificates. Statute says that JJI has to measure the effectiveness of programs that receive this funding from CBA or Juvenile Services, including recidivism, which we will refer to as future system involvement, other measures for juveniles, and whether the youth are sent to secure or staff secure detention after participating in these programs. So the JCMS is where you're entering the data that we then can use for our evaluations to see if the effectiveness, the recidivism, the other goals and measures of the programs, and whether they're moving deeper into the system. Some of the fields, and you'll see this when we're in the system, we need for future system involvement. Name and date of birth is a big one, so that we can make sure we're matching the right youth. And I say we, I mean the Crime Commission is matching the youth participating in your program to the court records that they get and the probation and the detention records. We also need discharge date and type. We'll get into that more. Some of the fields in there are for program specific goals. Examples of this are in truancy programs. We need to see, a goal would be to improve attendance rates, so we have a place to log that. In family support programs, you want to be increasing family function and family communication. We have a place to record that. And then other fields speak to the population of the youth that you're serving, which, age, school, grade, gender, race, all that. So behind the scenes of the JCMS, each agency has a unique program name and code that only the people within your agency will have access to that agency and code. There's also, each program type has a unique code. It's usually 4 letters, but some of them are a little bit shorter. Like if you're an electronic monitoring program, it's just EM. nice and simple. Everybody calls it EM anyway. So if your agency has more than one program, the staff will only be able to see the data that your exact program permissions allow them to see. This is kind of getting a little bit into the weeds, but I just want to let you know that it is secure. And what you're typing in and you're filling in for these youth, only the people within your agency and your specific program type can see. So I know some people do ask about that. So other questions that we get quite a bit about the JCMS, and I would rather just get out of the way now than have you guys stressing out about it when we're in the system. You are not creating a criminal record for youth by putting their information into the JCMS. NCJIS is the Nebraska Criminal Justice Information System. That's what the NCJIS stands for. But they also house non-criminal records. We use the NCJIS database for the JCMS because of its security levels. You're not going to be creating a criminal record by putting the kids in here. You are not sharing information with police, courts, probation, detention, etc., by entering information into the JCMS. When we get into the system, this will make a little bit more sense, but there are other agencies that have access to the CJIS, but they don't have access to JCMS. The Crime Commission is very, very careful about selecting the proper permissions on certificates behind the scenes. So just as the courts can't see the data you're entering in the JCMS, you cannot see what the courts are entering. So you might see information in there or have other people from other professions and agencies talk about the NCJIS database. They can't see what you're entering. As I said before, only the people within the same agency and program type can see the data you're entering. The leads on the grants can see your narratives and they can see your aggregate case count, but they cannot see the names and the other information you're putting in for the youth. JJI, me and my coworkers, we cannot see the data you're entering. We can only see aggregate numbers and narratives. Same goes for Amy and Trent with the Crime Commission. There's aggregate numbers. When we do our evaluation, we request an extract from the Crime Commission, and it's de-identified, meaning name and date of birth and any other identifiers are not included in this extract. When we do our evaluations, there's a field that's client ID, which again, we'll get into that. If we need to ask you a question about the youth, we would use that unique identifier, the client ID. But even if we had the names, even if you gave us all the names of all the kids you're serving, we would never publish names in a report. It's always, always, always de-identified data. And then the big two at the end there, HIPAA and FERPA. So when this project started, we worked with both the Crime Commission and the university's legal counsel to make sure we're in compliance with HIPAA and FERPA. The Nebraska Department of Education, and then last year, the US Department of Education have also weighed in on FERPA. Based on our state laws and the research exemptions in both HIPAA and FERPA, the JCMS is in compliance with both of these acts, and so you putting this information in does not violate either HIPAA or FERPA. All right, stop right there for a second and see if you guys have any questions about that little bit of information. I can only see the chat. I don't see the questions boxes. How do I get to the questions box?
It's Q&A underneath the chat. There's no questions so far.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. I'm going to stop sharing that for a second and jump into the JCMS now. Maybe. Okay. All right. Do you guys see? Do you guys see my certificate screen, Trent?
Yes,
Okay.
it's loading.
All right. So I actually didn't want to go to that website. So I don't get locked out now. Okay. So I'm going to use a test site instead of the actual website so that we're not looking at, oh, maybe I'm not.
Aaron, you're muted. We can't hear you.
All right, we got this now. Can you see the certificate box?
Yes.
Okay. I'm in Google Chrome now. Before I was in Edge. So, and I don't know if you guys heard me say I'm using the test system so that it's test cases that'll stay behind the scenes. We have a test system that we use to check for bugs and work out changes in the system. So when you type in the ncgis.nebraska.gov or click your bookmark or your link or however you do it, you'll get a place to select your certificate. I have 3 certificates because I have my live one and then I have 2 test ones. So you may only have one, you may have more than one. It depends on your agency and your program. So you select the certificate you want, and then it'll prompt you to enter a password. Okay, when you got your certificate from the Crime Commission, there was instructions on installation. Step 18 is to set the security level high and create a password. So that's what this one is. This is the password that you created. Hit allow, and it'll take you to the login of the NCGIS system. This password is the one that you received the same day you received your certificate. It's usually about 8 characters, usually capital letters, numbers, symbols, small letters, a whole mix of things. So that's that certificate. And then you're logged in to the JCMS. Like I said before, you can see all the different agencies that enter information in, but you can't click on any of them because they're grayed out. So only the blue links, so the JCMS right smack in the middle of the screen. And all these other people, this is grayed out for them. So click on the JCMS, and this is the home screen. We're not really looking at the Seward County Attorney, but it will have your agency name right here at the top. And we'll start with how to enter a new client in here. So over on this side, there's a bunch of different buttons. Your screen may not look exactly the same as mine because I have all sorts of permissions. So if you're not a system improvement program, you're not going to have the system improvement button. That only shows up for people with system improvement permissions. Those are programs that don't work directly with youth, but maybe do grant management or backbone support or trainings. And that's what their grant funding is used for. All right. So in the emails that went out, we told you there's 2 parts for reporting. There's new clients and there's narratives. We're going to start on the new client. So you would click new client and up pops this screen. Okay. This screen is super important. You'll see a bunch of fields with the asterisks, the little stars. You cannot move beyond this screen without completing all of the asterisk fields. So I'm going to use my dog, who's normally laying next to me when I'm at home. First name and last name, and then their youth's date of birth. Gender is a drop down. Race ethnicity is a drop-down. If there's a self-reported race ethnicity, if the youth provides that, you can go ahead and fill that in. This is not an exhaustive list, so if you are working with a specific population of youth and they're consistently self-reporting a race or ethnicity that's not in here, let us know and we can update this list. I know we have some programs that work with refugee populations, so those are usually the programs that tell us we're missing self-reported race and ethnicity. If you know their school student ID, you can put it in here. Those two are not required, but the rest are. Well, I guess middle name's not required, but if you report for more than one agency on the same certificate, you will have an option here. Most people just have the one. The referral date. This is the date that the youth was referred to your program, not the date that they started the program, unless they're the same. There are programs where the referral date is the same first date, but there are others where you may get the referral a week or two in advance. So we'll put in today's date. And then the case type is the program type. Again, I have all the options, but most of you will only have one, maybe two. I'm going to use family support for this specific test case. As I mentioned earlier, the names and the date of birth are how the data gets matched to the court cases and the probation cases. So that is why these ones are absolutely required. If you don't have this information, you won't be able to enter you into the system. Hang on, there's construction next door, so I hope it's not too loud. All right, when you hit save, that creates the client in the system and brings up the more program specific fields. It also will generate this client ID number over here. You cannot change this field, no matter what you do. It's there, it'll show it to you, but you can't change it. The system assigns a unique identifier, this client ID, to each youth, so that it's how we track them in the system behind the scenes and match youth across different program types. And if you need to communicate with us something about a youth, you use this client ID because we don't want emailing names for security purposes. All right. The intake section in the JCMS is fairly similar across program types, but there are going to be additional fields that are program specific. Pretty much, I think, from address down to referral date, no, enrollment date, should be the same on all the screens. With the intake section, this is their information at the time they are referred to your program. So this question has come up multiple times with the programs that run for extended periods of time. Mentoring is one of the ones that runs the longest because ideally the match should last a minimum of 12 months. So if you have a kiddo who starts in your program in 8th grade and if they stay there until 9th grade, you do not update the grade or the school because we want to know who you were referred. We want to know that it was an 8th grader who was referred and what school they went to, not that they were in 8th grade and then became 9th graders. So once you put this stuff in, it should stay. The referral date from up above lives down here, and then the system will automatically tell you the age they were at the time of referral. If it's anything less than 6 or older than 30, the system is going to warn you that you have a less than 6-year-old or an over 30-year-old that you've entered in. But it doesn't hurt to check, you know, like if you know it's supposed to be 17, but you had a typo and there's 7, it's always good to just glance at that age at referral to make sure that everything is accurate. Within the JCMS, you'll see fields with the asterisks and stars. These are the required variables. Amy with the Crime Commission sent that list out at the beginning of the fiscal year, and it can also be found on their website and our website, which I'll show you our website later. These are the variables that are necessary for the evaluations of the program. So if they have a star, we need you to fill them out. With that being said, all of the variables and the fields in here have a purpose behind them. And so the more information you can provide us, the more detailed the evaluation you can complete. You'll see in here family size, family income are not asterisk stars, required fields, sorry. Ideally, we would want those to be, but when we tried to make them required, we heard a lot of feedback from programs that families don't want to give you this information. So if you do get it, great, fill it in. If you can't get it on those ones, that's fine. The same for the if an interpreter is needed, or the name of the person referring. The referral source is more important than the actual name of the person referring. Referral source is the relationship of that person to the youth. So a teacher, diversion program, guidance counselor, self-referral. You'll see that the field turned red when I didn't select anything. Required fields will turn red if you go into them and don't put anything in, or if you're somebody who likes to tab over fields, it'll turn red if you skip over it without entering anything in. Just a reminder to go and fill that information in. You'll also see that as you're typing, that's what I use most of the time for testing, this field will turn green. A green field means it is saved behind the system. After you initially hit save up here, there is not a save button again on the client information. So as long as it's turning green, it's saving to the system. The grant number field would be the number that's assigned to the grant. If you are a program who reports for both CBA and JS, this is going to be important for you to track which grant you belong to in this field. Grant County is the county that the grant goes through. So we do have multi-county groups. So it's whichever one of those counties receives the grant, not necessarily the county that the youth lives in or that the program takes place in. I think the other field in here that sometimes trips people up is the custody guardianship field. Custody guardianship refers to who has legal custody of you, not who the youth is living with while they're in your program. Think about it if you need somebody to sign official papers, who can you contact for that signature? So it could be both parents, even if they only live with mom, or if they live with mom and dad, half a 50-50 split on custody, both parents can sign a paper. But if mom has full custody, even if they're living with dad, dad can't sign papers. So it's who has the legal custody of you. I hope that one makes sense. We are working on adding a place to note who the youth is living with, but that's still in the works. As you scroll down on the intake section, this is where the program specific fields usually are. So again, I'm in a family support screen. So family functioning at intake, family communication at intake. The reason for enrollment will be different by each program type. So fill out all the information that you can here in this section. And if you keep going down, you'll notice the discharge section is right underneath intake and above all the other information. The reason we put the discharge section up here is, as you'll see in a minute, the program specific tabs can get kind of long, and so people were forgetting to discharge their kids because they just couldn't see it on the screen. The discharge section is an important one because this is where we look at future system involvement or recidivism. So we look at a specific time frame after the youth has completed the program. We don't want to look at them while they're still in the program because they may not have acquired all of the skills or completed all the requirements for the to be discharged yet. So we don't look at them while they're there. We look at them after they have discharged from the program. We also want to look at discharge reason. Is there a difference between a youth who successfully completes a program or who's unsuccessful in their completion with regard to future system involvement or program successes? So in the family support screens, there's also family function at discharge and family communication at discharge. There are, like on the school-based screens, what's their school attachment like at intake? What's their school attachment like at discharge? Because we want to see, again, if they were successful, did that change? If they were unsuccessful, did that change? And I mean, recidivism is a good measure for juvenile justice, but it's not the best measure for all of the programs that the grants fund, because you could have made an improvement in their family functioning, but the kid still winds up going to court for other reasons. So that is the discharge section, why it is so important. Moving on to the tabs. Down here at the bottom of the discharge, all of the screens are different tabs depending on the program type. So for family support, there's contacts, classes, scores, and referrals. So to get the fields to come up, you would click add whichever, add contact, add class. And this will bring up information that pertains to your program. With contacts, with family support, we want to know who you were meeting with, what the meeting was for, was it face-to-face, in person, how did the contact go for you? We have in some of them, in all the contacts tabs, there's a begin date and an end date. So if it's the same type of contact with the same people for the same reason 5 times a week, you can record an entire week's worth by putting the first day and the last day of the week. So for an example for this, before I came to JJI a long time ago, I was a family support worker, and I had a family that I met with in their home every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7 a.m. to 8:15 a.m. It was a truancy case, so I had to make sure the kids got to school. So I would want to record an entire week's worth at a time. I don't want to enter each individual. I'm making up dates because I don't have a calendar in front of me. So you can type in the entire week, and then it is a face-to-face. Reason for contact was family behaviors, and at that meeting was the youth, one parent, and another family member every single time because their aunt lived there. And the primary type of activity for us was parenting skills, getting those kids out the door. We could also say it was educational goals. So then the duration in hours, if you're doing a range, you need to add it up. So that would be, for me, it was 3.7 hours over 3 occurrences. And then you can type in any notes. If for some reason this changed and in that same time frame, I was also meeting with them by phone, like I called the mom every other day, I would need to create a new tab. Down here, if you saw me, I clicked add contact for the same date range. Oops. Because it's phone with the mom or something that we're working on with her, and then fill out the rest of the information. If you want to enter individual dates one by one, if you're not meeting with the family that frequently, or you just prefer to have each individual contact be its own separate thing, you can put the begin date and the end date as the same date and then fill out the rest of the information. You can add as many of the contacts, classes, whatever the tab is, as you need to, just by continually clicking that button there at the bottom, which is where I said before, the discharge section was getting pushed way down and people were forgetting about it. If it doesn't pertain to your program, like if you are a family support class, a parenting class, you probably aren't going to have contacts. If you're a one-on-one direct in the home family support worker, you're probably not going to have classes. So just make sure you're filling out the information that pertains to your program. On a scores tab and a couple of other tabs, we'll look at a couple more. There is a field that will say completed, test completed. I can't remember the other one. Well, it will come up on it. Yes, no, or refuse. This is especially important on scores tabs because scores are talking about assessments that you're doing with the youth to determine their level of needs and the services they should be obtaining. If you are not assessing a youth, we would like you to go into the score tab and put no, so that we know when we look at the data that that youth was not assessed. The same if they refuse, that it's a refusal. Otherwise, what happens is we pull the data and we see a bunch of missing scores, and we can't tell from our end if the youth wasn't assessed, the youth refused, or if maybe we pulled the data before you were able to enter in that information. So we would rather know if there should not be a test score with a no or a refusal than have to contact you and ask you if you completed this information or not. Okay, so that is, that's the JCMS. Like I said, these are specific to family support. Up here at the top, you can see I just typed in Rusty, which is the name I used for my test case. You can search up here by typing in a name, a first name or a last name, a full name, or you put in 3 letters and the asterisk, and it'll pop back everybody with those 3 letters anywhere in either their first or last name. So it'll return some crazy hits, but if that comes in handy when there's nicknames. So if you can't remember, if you typed in Bob or Bobby, that will help you with that. So these are all, and then it'll pop up down here, all the different clients with that name. You can also search by the client ID. If for some reason you specifically say, hey, you need to look at client 116850, you can type that number in right here and search by client ID. Make sure you're typing into the right search box. Sometimes that will definitely throw off your search results if you're typing into the wrong box. So, there's the pop-up for the age at referral. Apparently, when I created Rusty's mental health case, he was 1. So this is just a different look at a different screen. And then it's very similar to family support in that there's contacts or groups, because there can be group therapy sessions. And then the scores tab with, again, yes, no, or refused in there. All right, are there any questions? Okay, there are a few. Okay, Wendy asked, what is meant by cultural component on the family support screens? We have definitions on our website, which I'll show you the website at the end. But cultural component is if your program is doing something that has a cultural component to it, if that's what your focus is for that meeting, that contact. There are programs in Nebraska, specifically family support programs, that do work on addressing very specific cultures, races, ethnicities, populations, and the curriculum speaks to that specific culture and trying to, okay, I'll use the example I heard last week. Be proud of your heritage is what was said by one program, to make kids understand where they came from and just different parts of their heritage and their culture. So that's what that means. Just another one, if you're working with a student that's been part of the program for multiple years, you'll be able to estimate a referral date. Yes, we would prefer exact dates. But if it's been for a really long time or there's been staff turnover, then if you can get the month and the year, the date might not be necessarily as important. The referral date and the enrollment date, one of the things that we would look at in our evaluation is, are kids being referred like, today, but they're not being enrolled for 5-6 months afterwards. That's problematic. We do want the kids to be enrolled as soon as they can, understanding, of course, that you all have limitations, the size of your building, the number of staff, social distancing now. So that's why the referral date and enrollment date, having it as close to accurate as possible, is beneficial. Also, the referral date would show us, again, how old they were at the time, and it kind of groups them into, if we're looking at a specific group, like if we want to look at the youth who started receiving funding in this fiscal year, the referral date groups them into that category. So if we pulled them up and said, we don't see you serving any kids right now, it's because we pulled that specific time frame, and if the referral date's not accurate, it could throw off those numbers. Anybody else right now? There's more.
There's a couple in the Q&A that I can read off. Let's see. Oh, it's too small for me to read. Hold on. Natalie asks, which provided password should be entered under the prompt? Google Chrome wants to sign using private key in your keychain. To allow this, enter the login keychain password.
Ooh, that sounds like a Mac. Macs are a little different than PCs. I believe to access the keychain, it is the login password you use on your computer when you log into your computer. If that doesn't work, email me and I'll send you the user guide that I have for Macs.
Okay, and then do you have to use Internet Explorer or can you use Google Chrome?
This came up. I actually asked the IT people at the Crime Commission this question yesterday because I knew it was going to come up. Okay, so the system is optimized for Edge and Internet Explorer because Internet Explorer is fading out. Edge is the new thing, but it will work in Chrome as long as everything is updated through Microsoft and through Chrome. On very rare occasion, Google will update something that kind of breaks the system, but it can be fixed. I'm in Chrome now. I do use Edge when I do when I'm in the live system, I usually use Edge, and the test system I do Chrome. Firefox does not work. I can't remember the specifics, but I know that any issue that you have in Firefox can be resolved by switching to a different browser. So whichever browser you're more comfortable with, it will look the same on the screen no matter which one you're using. It's just the settings. If you needed to fix something behind the scenes, you just need to let us know which browser you're using so we know which prompts to give you.
Okay, what if we don't know all the information such as diagnosis?
So with the JCMS, if there's information that you don't have as you're entering in right then and there, you can go back in and fill information in as you go. If it's something you're never going to get, though, a lot of times there will be an option like, for example, you had diagnosis was brought up. There could be a no diagnosis. I don't think we have an unknown. We usually have an unknown on ones like this. But if you need to gather it from other sources, like maybe at the time of referral, you don't have all the information, or you have a form that you use that a youth leaves off 3 questions. I mean, sometimes it's hard to get the information from the youth or the families. this would, if you can go back and get the information, that's great. Otherwise, if you're struggling to get some information, let me know and we can help you with some, what we've heard from other programs works.
And then also assuming we do not need parental consent for incarcerated youth. Parental consent for what? We'll see if she provides more information on that question. Another question, so we enter all current clients or enter when they are discharged. What is the start date for data entry? The start date is the referral date.
Right, so if you're new coming on and you currently have youth that you're serving, July, okay, I probably should have started with this. Our fiscal years run July 1st through June 30th. So we're 20 days into this current fiscal year. So the grants start on July 1st. So any youth that you serve, that you are serving from July 1st on. If you're currently serving youth who were referred prior to all this, if you can put those in, that would be fabulous. If you have like 300 youth, reach out to me. That's a different story. And then as far as entering clients, I would strongly recommend entering them as they are referred to you, not when they discharge. One, there's a lot of information to fill out. If you wait till they discharge, you could have a few months of information to enter in, which would be a bit time consuming. Once you entered them in, you can always just go in and add to their profiles later. Also, if we were to run a report on the number of youth being served or the number of youth that have been referred to your program and you wait until they're discharged, it could show your numbers as being much lower than they actually are, which you don't want to misrepresent the number of youth that you're serving. That being said, we do have programs that have reached out to me in the past and said, you know, Friday afternoons is the only time I can enter data. So Friday afternoons for 3 hours, I just sit and enter data. That's fine if that's what works for you. I would not put off the data entry until the quarterly reporting, which is due the 15th of the month after the quarter ends. So like everybody who was funded in 1920 just finished their fourth quarter reporting last week. The reason I wouldn't put it off until the very end of the quarter is there's 224 CBA programs and 26 juvenile service programs funded that are going to be entering information in. If everybody waits till the end of the quarter, the system will be overloaded and the server won't be able to keep up. So don't wait until the end of the quarter to report, if at all possible.
Yeah, so at a minimum, you have to report your data, your referrals quarterly.
Right.
Okay, and then so Deanna said, assuming we do not need parental consent for incarcerated youth for them to participate in the program. Yeah, so we don't manage your programs or youth participation in the program. We just want the data in the program. So we can't give you advice on that when it comes to data entry. But if you want to send us an email or contact us separately, we can talk about your program type and if you're having issues with parental consent or participation. Okay, that's all the questions so far.
All right. Second part of reporting that was mentioned is narratives, which is also in the JCMS. Hang on just a second. My box of participants was over my button. So the narratives are under grant admin. So when you click on the grant admin button, it'll bring you to this screen. Narratives are due at the quarterly reporting. You only need to do one per quarter per program. So if you report for more than one program, you'll have more than one narrative. But it's just once a quarter, unlike the should be continually updated. The grant number is information that the lead on the grant should have and hopefully can provide to you. If absolutely not, I can look it up, but it's easier to get it from the lead on the grant. The sub-grantee, you can see where it says lead county or tribe. So the sub-grantee is the name of the county for CBA that receives the money, and for juvenile services, it would be the agency. Program title would be the name of the program. So, for example, just use Lancaster County because that's where I'm at. And we'll say the program title is Happy Kids. Don't put Happy Kids over here in the sub-grantee part. It will make it harder for us to find your narrative once it's been submitted. The reporting period is a drop-down menu, and you pick the right reporting period for that time. This does rotate out, so like I said, they just finished Q4 for 1920. When it's time for first quarter reporting, which would be due October 15th, when you go in here, this Q3 will be gone, and there'll be an additional Q1 down here at the bottom. So make sure you check the dates. When JJI and the Crime Commission look at narratives that have been submitted, we have to look by the reporting period. So if you pick the wrong, like if somebody recently, like I said, the Q4 reports picked this one, I'm not going to see it. So make sure you get the right date. Your agency should be there, and then you need to select the program type. We'll just do it because it's on the top. All right. The first field on here, indicate if you were served this quarter. There's 3 options. Yes, our program served youth and took new referrals. Yes, our program served youth but did not take new referrals. And no, we did not serve any youth. All right. So because the grant, the leads on the grant and JJI and the Crime Commission can only see aggregate data. If we open it up and we see a 0 for referrals, we're going to assume you didn't serve any youth, unless you fill this out and say, we just didn't take new referrals, but we still continue to serve youth. We can see youth that are active in the program. So, you know, if I look at your agency and I see 93 active youth with 0 new referrals, I'm just going to assume you guys were full. But there are times where you just don't get referrals and you're not currently serving kids. That's more common in the alternatives to detention programs, where it's a shorter term program and you're kind of dependent on, first the kids have to, you know, get picked up for some reason before a judge or have probation do the intake. And then the assessment tool determines whether or not, I mean, there's a whole bunch of working parts there. So it does also happen where maybe your program, you're having program staff turnover, and so you have to shut the program down for a few months. I mean, things happen. And then the other 3 questions you can read when you're in there. Describe the activities that have taken place during the reporting period. This is not day-to-day activities. A summary of activities and accomplishments that have taken place during the quarter. Issues in reporting and problems that were encountered and addressed. So issues in reporting, if you're having trouble with the JCMS or getting information from the youth, that would go here. Problems encountered would be more like, I think last quarter I saw one where they said the referring agency just stopped sending referrals over. Well, that's a problem. How they addressed it, they went and had a meeting with everybody involved to try to resolve the issue. All right, so those are the questions on the narrative part. This is probably one of the biggest issues that we run into with narratives. Is down here at the bottom of it are buttons for saving and submitting. If you save your narrative, it will, I'll just show you. You save the narrative, it says it's saved. Now you have a brand new narrative. If you're a program that reports, or an agency that reports for more than one program, you could have 2 narratives going simultaneously. You know, maybe you have Happy Kids and you have Parents or Us, a parenting class. You can type them both in at the same time. Saving only saves it for you, though. We can't see it to see if you completed it until it's been submitted. Once it's saved, you can still change, you know, like, oh, I hit the wrong thing on the drop down, or, you know, I see a typo here, or my grant number is wrong, whoops. When it's saved, you can still make changes. When it's all ready to go, if you've saved it, you would hit the submit button up here. If you didn't save it, if you just type, you hit submit down here. And then now it says your narrative's been submitted. All right, here's the fun part. Blank narratives are first. Saved narratives come next. Scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. Submitted narratives are there. Once it's been submitted, you can still make changes to it. You know, if you realize, you know, oops, I picked the wrong reporting period, or man, I really should have put this information in this box, you can still make changes to it as long as the boxes allow you to make changes. They'll be white, and you can click on them and type information in. All right, so with the narratives, the lead contact for the grant certifies the narratives. Meaning they read your narrative and make sure everything sounds accurate, and then they certify it, saying that everything is accurate. Most of you can see the certify button here. Most of you won't see this button. You have to have a specific permission on your certificate to be able to certify. Some of you do have it, but not everybody will. So at this stage, when it's being read by the county leads or the project leads, if they see an error in the grant number, the reporting period, maybe a suggestion to add something else, you can still go back in and add it as long as they don't click certify. Once they click certify, all the way down, oh, that's a submitted one. All the way down at the bottom, we have a lot in our test system. Where'd it go? All right, so once it's been certified, you'll see it says certified, and it's completely blue. You cannot make any changes at this point. So like I certified this yesterday. It says what day it was certified, what reporting period it is. So then at the end of quarterly reporting, JJI and the Crime Commission look to see who has completed these requirements. If we notice that you have the wrong reporting period at this point, once it's been certified, you have to create a new narrative. Once it's been certified, you can't make any changes. So double, triple, quadruple check that everything is right before it is submitted to be certified, because the certification part may be out of your control. You know, I know there's some communities that request all the reports to be done a day or two before the 15th so that they can be reviewed and certified in a timely manner. So just double and triple check, because if you're not really paying attention and the person clicks certify and then you catch the error, then and yes, I see your question about copying and pasting, so I'll go back down to the certified narrative. Clearly we put in a lot of detail, so I just copied that line and yes, it pastes over. So if you have multiple programs and you've been reporting for a long period of time, you're going to have, I mean, you can see these are all the ones we've tested. It gets long. So if you're looking for a specific one, know that it goes new, saved, submitted, certified, and the most recent one will be on the top of each of those sections. So the most recent certified one would be here, and then the one before that here, and the one before that here. To swear up and down, if after quarterly reporting is done, I email you and say, hey, I don't see your narrative, and you say, no, I did it. Check that you hit submit, because until it's submitted, it's just on your screen. Nobody else can see it. Are there any other questions about narratives? Okay. You can export your narratives if you click this button. It will pop out all the narratives that you've typed in into an Excel sheet with the reporting period, and they go in columns, so the questions will be at the end. So if you need to export your narratives, that's an option. To get back to the client screen, you can click Case Management, and it'll bring you back here. The other thing that I wanted to show you all that pertains to everybody here, because there's some other things that are specific to program types, which I'll go over again in a minute. There's a reports button that when you click reports, it brings up this other screen. Michaela, no, there's not character limits on the narratives. Some people will write a book and other people will write 2 sentences. So again, this is going to look different because of the permissions that I have. Most programs will only see these 2 cases up here, and then, sorry, these 2 reports, and then I believe this one. So with the reports in the JCMS, that was one of the things I was going to show you. When you click on the reports button and it brings this screen up, if you click anywhere off of it, it goes away, and you have to click reports again. So mind. So currently open case report will show you every single case that you've entered in that does not have a discharge date. A currently closed case will show you every single client you have entered in that does have a discharge date. So if your agency has been reporting for 4 or 5 years and they're continually closing programs out, or cases out, sorry, there could be quite a few in the closed case report. So it might take some finagling to find what you're looking for. So on here, I have an open case. I clicked on it and it's bold now. You come down here, pick whichever your program type is. You can either preview the report or not today, I guess. Oh, there we go. And it'll bring up this window that shows you agency, first name, last name, demographic information. Scroll over. There's your intake section. All the intake fields here. If it's a discharge report, you'll have the discharge information. Again, if you click off of it, it goes away. If it's something you want to keep, download the report into females you served, then you can just sort it by the gender category and it'll pop that out for you. All right. Any questions? I know I'm throwing a lot at you and I'm going kind of quick, and I apologize for that. This is also very general. There are different bits and pieces for the different program types, and so to try to oops, sorry, I hit the wrong button. To try and make it a little bit easier for programs, we have a website, a JJI website, that is jjinebraska.org. And it is specific to the Evidence-Based Nebraska project. So that's what the CBA grant, the Juvenile Services, it's Evidence-Based Nebraska. So from here, we have our homepage. If you want to find out more about us, that information is here. But under the programs menu, there's Programs Home, which is the general information that pertains to JCMS, to all the different programs. At the top of each page is some research in the area. So Marcus, who is our website person, tries to keep this updated. You can see we have a 2018 article here about criminogenic needs matching, intervention dosage, and subsequent recidivism among serious juvenile offenders in residential placement. So if that's what you're looking for, there it is for you right there on the website. Below that, where there's this microphone symbol or picture, is all the training videos. So whenever we make a change in the system that is a bigger change, I go in and record a video explaining to you what it is, why we did it, what you need to do. Again, this is the program homes page. So this is specific. This is not specific to a program type. This is general for the JCMS. So the age validation pop-up that you saw come up with my rusty tester case, who was only one, there's a video that explains that. Interpreter fields. When you have clients return, we made a change in the system. So now if you have somebody you've served before come back, you create a new client, you enter them again. It's different than the way it used to be. So we have a user guide in here on missing data reports and some webinars regarding the missing data reports. So once a quarter, you will receive a missing data report that will show the required variables that are missing for all your discharge youth. Brand new programs starting out probably won't be getting one for a quarter or two, but if you're a new staff coming into an existing program, yeah, you might get one soon. There's more information about that. Another email was sent out about that to programs. So and if you go all the way back, the newer videos are at the top. So if you can't remember, you're stuck, know that we talked about narratives, but you can't remember how to do it. There's a creating narratives video. Here's the intake field, discharging youth, how to enter a new client. If you're really looking for something interesting, here's how to pivot table in Excel when you run your reports. That one was a fun one to make. So down to the bottom, using wildcards to search hyphenated names. That was a huge change in the system. It took us a while. But if you want to know more about the specifics for your program type in the JCMS, you can go under the programs menu and look at mentoring this time. We have our definitions of mentoring. And then these are all the recordings for videos on mentoring specific topics and fields. So how to add a mentor and their activities. We have a waitlist tab, which was new, so we created a video for that. Below where there's the binders, we have our screen definitions, which should bring up a new window, hopefully. And you can see this was updated at the beginning of the month. We define the variables on the screens for you and some of the drop-down options. I say some because there are some that are either very self-explanatory, like yes or no. I'm not going to define a yes or a no. You guys don't need that. But then also there's some that are, I'll just say it, mental health diagnosis. Therapists know the definitions of that better than I do. So we also have user guides based on the program types. We have 4 different subcategories of mentoring, which is why there's 4 here. But this will talk you through everything we just, how to create a new client, how to open a tab, and how to get to the narratives. And then here is research specific to mentoring programs. So we keep this as updated as possible. But it's an ever-changing field in juvenile justice. So also on our website, we have our reports. These are the reports that we've published in the past. The more ones are up at the top. So we just released one on crisis response. We have a brief on mental health services. So the ones with black covers are program-specific evaluations. The ones with white covers are the annual reports, which have a different scope. So if you want to know more about the history of evidence-based Nebraska, where the JCMS came from, all the hiccups we've had along the way. I mean, this has been going on since July 1st of 2015 was when all this reporting started. This report is available on our website. You just click it and it opens up. But if you're interested in the rest of the work we've done, our reports are up here. Under tools, if you most of you probably have a system that you're already reporting into, and this is going to be duplicate data entry, and I apologize for that. But if you don't have set forms, intake forms, and you're thinking about creating one, or you want to integrate JCMS information into your existing forms, we have this section of forms. I don't know if you saw, I went to tools and then JCMS forms, and if forms that have every field for the JCMS. These have not been updated after the push because there's a lot of forms to update, but we are working on that. But so if you're an after-school program, here's an intake form, maybe, and this is all the fields that we saw in the intake section, but this is specific for after school. Even with the drop-down options, you can select that so that when you go back to the screen to enter the information in, you have the same options on the screen in front of you. All right, but I know I threw a lot at you guys, so there's any other questions right now about our website, the JCMS reporting project? Okay. If you are running into issues with your certificate, you can't log in, it says you forgot your password, or I guess you forgot password. If you get a blue screen with yellow words that says access forbidden, you need to email the help desk. That is not something that I can assist with. It's completely blocked out of the system. They'll also be the one to help you with that. If you have questions about the JCMS or data entry, then you can email me. You can call me too if you'd like. I am still working remotely, so probably the better option. Questions of the grant itself would go to Trent with the Crime Commission. I cannot answer questions about the grant, so. Me or Trent, did I forget anything? Hopefully not.
No, I think that covered it. If anyone ever has any questions or stuff, contact any of us. We all know who to direct you to if we don't know the answer. And we want you to be able to use this system for your benefit as well. So if you have any questions or issues, please do not hesitate to reach out. If you start entering the data and you realize that the questions that we're asking you just don't fit what you're doing, reach out to us right away about that too. You might be misclassified into the wrong program type. Or maybe we need to add something to the screens, one of the two. So don't wait to contact us to say that it doesn't work. Just reach out as soon as you figure that out. But no, I think we covered it.
All right. I guess if you guys think any questions, just reach out. We will have this video available on our websites. If you do need to rewatch it, or if you wind up, what I'm looking for, if you have new staff come in, or if you decide to give somebody else in the agency permissions and you want them to watch the video, it will be available as well.